Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. All right, so that's a little bit exaggerated. Now, the real story doesn't have 81 whacks to Abby and Andrew Borden put together, but the true story still remains. Abby and Andrew Borden were brutally unalived in their home on August 4th, 1892. Now, was it really Lizzie Borden that unalived them? Or was it someone else? That's what we're going to dive into in this episode. So go ahead and sit back, grab a drink, and let the story begin. Hey ghoulies, and welcome back to the Final Queer Files. I have a cool new background. We have our neon sign designed by Kings of Neon. Shout out to them, we love them. And we have classic Universal Monster movie posters because I just thought that my background needed a little So we are here today to discuss episode 2 of the Final Queer Files, which is the axe murderer of Fall River. Now, I say axe murderer because there's actually no evidence that Lizzie Borden actually committed the murders. Now, does all the evidence really point to her? Yes, of course, and we'll talk about that. But there's a little bit of things that I feel, in my opinion, that I feel encapsulate the story a little bit more, and I'm going to share that with you all. So, like I said before, make sure to grab a drink today. I am drinking one of the Angry Orchard Jason Universe collab drinks, which is the blood orange one from the Thriller pack. It is so good. And no, this is not sponsored by Angry Orchard. But Angry Orchard, if you ever want to sponsor me, so before we get into the story, folks, please make sure to give this video a like. Please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And please make sure to turn on notifications because you never want to miss a fabulous makeup video or a Final Queer File. All right, let's get into it. All right, so first we're going to talk about the major players in this case. And we have to start off with Andrew Borden. Andrew Borden is the father of both Emma and Lizzie Borden. Now, he was known to be a penny pincher, and he would not really give Emma and Lizzie a lot of money. He never gave them an allowance. He never let them go up to what was called the Hill, which was like kind of like the socialite part of Fall River. And he just was very tight on money, and he would even like be really big on eating moldy leftovers. But when it came to his second wife, y'all, he would give her money, he would give her family money. So honestly, I don't blame Lizzie. If she did murder them, I don't blame her. Because, like, what the heck? Like, why are you going to be penny pinching, but then with your second wife, you're going to give them money? Like, oh, hell no. Next up, we have Sarah Borden, which is actually Emma and Lizzie's birth mother. Now, she was Sarah Morse before she was married, which is, again, going to be important. And so she actually dies in 1863, 3 years after Lizzie's born. but Emma is actually 12 years old at the time. So she actually remembers how their mother was like, whereas Lizzie was just a baby, so she doesn't really remember a lot. But she dies in 1863. And so, of course, we have Emma Borden, who is the older sister of Lizzie Borden. And, of course, we have Lizzie Borden, who is our main suspect in this final queer file. Because, again, history has shown and painted her as the villain. But was she really so? Well, we'll find out. Or not, because it's still an unsolved mystery. Next up, we do have Abby Borden. Now, Abby Borden, she marries Andrew Borden 2 years in 1865 after Sarah Borden dies. So, homie did not even he didn't even wait. He was just like, I need someone to mother my children, and Abby's got it right. And so I can see the resentment, because how do you lose a wife but then marry someone right off the bat? And I mean, again, the standards were different back then, but I just don't forgive him. Anyways, moving on to our next player, which is Bridget Sullivan, also known as Maggie, by Emma and Lizzie. That wasn't her real name, but they just called her that because supposedly that's what the maid before, that was her name. So they just called her Maggie because they were like, oh, we're used to that. Which, rude. So she is an Irish immigrant, and she begins working for the Borden house. And she is actually present during the murders, but strategically, she is in different places. Was she the one? I don't know. We'll find out. And then lastly, we have John Morse. It was John. If you know, you know. Check out the video that I'm going to tag right here. So John Morse is the maternal uncle of Emma and Lizzie Borden, and it's really crucial to understand that he is the maternal uncle. So he is their biological mom's brother. Starting to get there? Starting to connect the dots? If you're working on a murder board, put it right there. But another fact about him is that he previously was a butcher by trade. Sounds suspicious. So those are all the players. So we are next going to go into the chronology of everything about the trial, the case, everything. So let's get to it. All right, so next up, I'm going to go through the chronology of all the events that occur, and it's going to take a little bit of time before we get to the actual unalivings of Abby and Andrew Borden. But trust me, there is a lot of red flags along the way that I'm going to point out to you. All right, so starting off with, of course, we have Sarah Borden, who is the biological mother of Emma and Lizzie Borden, and she passes away in 1863. In the middle of the Civil War, by the way. Gettysburg took her. Just kidding, she wasn't there. Then 2 years later, homie remarries, and then Abby Borden comes into the picture. Now, like I said, Lizzie was just 3 years old when her mother passed away, whereas Emma was 12. And it said that Emma was kind of like a mother figure to her. And when they talk about Abby Borden, originally Lizzie was calling her mother, but around 1887, she actually stops calling her mother and starts referring to her as stepmother. Red flag number 1. She has a distaste for her stepmother. In 1889, that is when Bridget Sullivan starts to work at the Borden house. And she knows she's typical maid. She goes around doing her maid duties. She cleans the house. She helps Abby Borden with washing windows and just doing everything a maid would do back in the Victorian era. And in 1891, there is actually a robbery that occurs in the household of the Bordens. Now, this happens during the daytime. Bridget, Emma, and Lizzie are present when this happens. And because of this robbery, Andrew then decides, hey, we're just going to lock all the doors and we're not going to keep anything open. So if anyone comes knocking, we have to open the locks and let them in, which again, this is going to come in handy a little bit later because it adds to the story of like, was this an inside job? Then in April of 1892, Lizzie Borden goes to a cloak maker named Hannah Gifford. And, she's just doing her thing, talking the gossip, things that you would normally do when you go shopping. But then all of a sudden, she drops the line, Abby, meaning Abby Borden, is just a mean old thing. Red flag number 2. Fast forward to July 1892, when Emma and Lizzie actually leave Fall River because of a family disagreement. And they travel to New Bedford. Now, could this been the time where they had planned the unalivings? Maybe. Then comes August 2nd, 1892, 2 days prior to the brutal unalivings of Andrew and Abby Borden. They wake up feeling weird in their stomachs. They don't really know what's going on. They're kind of just like, what the heck? Like, our stomachs hurt. Like, we're just, like, it sucks. I mean, this could be because Andrew Borden literally had them eat day-old meat. But Abby Borden goes to Dr. Bowen, who is their kind of family doctor and the doctor of the town. And she says, hey, like, I honestly think that I've just been poisoned. Like, maybe it was, like, stuck in my bread or something. And Dr. Bowen's like, it's highly unlikely. I'm kind of skeptical about it. I don't know. I mean, have you met your husband? And so they just kind of brush it off and just like, okay. But, homies, August 3rd, the next morning, Lizzie Borden gets caught trying to buy poison from a local drugstore. Red flag number 3, homies. Yeah. I would have thought she was gonna do something that day too. Now, the evening of August 3rd is actually kind of wild. So, John Morse, remember, he is the maternal uncle of Lizzie and Emma Borden. He comes to visit and stay for one night. Suspicious. And so he's going there. He's like, hey, like, I'm here to visit for one night. Like, I'm just, doing my thing. And so he's there. But Lizzie then goes over to her neighbor's house, Alice Russell. And she starts talking like forebodingly. She kind of like talks about poisoning. She's talking about how her father has enemies, and she's also talking about how she's seen like strange people walking around her house. And like, this is red flag number, what is it, 4? Like, homegirl, are you trying to build your alibi? Are you trying to like what's going on? Like, what? All right, so the morning of August 4th, the day of the brutal unalivings, it starts off pretty calm. Andrew, Abby, and John wake up around 7 a.m. They're having breakfast in the dining room. They're kikiing. They're like, yeah, like, oh my God, we're talking, yeah. And then so Andrew and John, they go to the sitting room, and Abby starts doing her chores for the day. At this time, Bridget is also not feeling well, so she actually goes to the backyard to actually throw up. And then around 8:45, John Morse leaves the house. But does he actually leave the house? I don't know. I don't know. Oh. I also forgot that at this time, then Andrew Borden leaves the house in the morning to actually go do some business in town. And Lizzie has asked him to take some letters to the post office to mail. That's kind of suspicious. Like coincidentally, like you were just like all of a sudden like, oh, Father, here, send this mail off, please. Girl, we know what you're doing. All right, let's get to some unalivings. So around 9:30 in the morning of August 4th, 1892, Abby Borden starts to go up to the second floor of the house to continue cleaning and doing her chores. Bridget Sullivan is outside washing the windows, cleaning the outside part. You know, Abby Borden's doing inside, Bridget's doing the outside. So she obviously doesn't hear anything or see anything or whatever is happening. Sometime within the next hour, supposedly, is when Abby Borden is unalived by 19 blows to the back of her head. So she never saw her attacker coming. And this is where my theory starts to come in. I believe that John Morse never really left the house, but he hid, and he is actually the person that committed the unaliving of Abby Borden. Because then in the trial, he was actually dismissed because people actually saw him in town, and so that was his alibi. But again, he could have easily committed the crime and then left, right? And then created his alibi. So this is why I believe it was John. Then around 11 a.m., Andrew Borden comes back home, and Bridget has to let him back into the house because, again, the doors are locked, and they remain locked. Further proof that this was an inside job. And so while she's opening the lock, she hears like a muted laugh, like a tee. I don't know if that was actually what she heard, but that it says muted laugh. And I was like, okay, cool. I just imagined that. So Andrew Borden walks in, business as usual. And then in the dining room, Lizzie meets with him and is like, hello, Father. I would like to tell you that Abby has gotten a message and she had to leave. Suspicious. Suspicious. You know dang well she did. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And so Andrew Borden's like, all right, okay, cool. She went out. All right, so she's not here. So he goes into the sitting room, lies down on the couch because he's, tired, wants to have a afternoon siesta. And Bridget, again, she wasn't feeling well. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to go up to my attic room and I'm just going to rest. And that's it. And then, again, the only other people in the house is Lizzie. Because, again, Abby is. And fun fact, Emma, coincidentally, is not in the house because she's visiting a friend somewhere else. That's why I think it's a whole plot. It's a whole plot, y'all. It's a whole family plot. And so sometime within this time, Andrew Borden is unalived on the couch in the sitting room with some wax to his face, really brutally, to the point where he is unrecognizable. And this is my theory that Lizzie is the one that unalives Andrew Borden. Now, she didn't fully hate her father, but she didn't appreciate that he never gave them money, whereas he would give Abby and her family money. So I could see why. And so, the whole story goes is that she finds him, right, brutally unalived, and then she yells to Bridget saying, "Oh no, someone's murdered father! How? How?" And then she goes outside, yells at the neighbor, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, my father is dead! Oh my gosh, woe is me!" And so then the police come because everyone's like, "What the heck?" When the police start to investigate, they do a whole post-mortem autopsy in the dining room on the bodies, which is But then they start to interrogate Lizzie Borden. And when she's talking, she gives her alibi of like, "Oh, I was looking for irons in the barn in the back because I'm going to go on a fishing trip and all this other stuff and, whatever." And when they're talking to her, she has such a detached manner to her, like as if nothing is fazing her about what just happened or what just occurred in the house. So again, this is another red flag because they're like, your father and mother have been brutally unalived, and you're just kind of like matter of fact about it. And she actually corrects them and say, "Oh, she's not my mother, she's my stepmother." Girl. Now, here is where the story gets wilder. So, on August 7th of 1892, Emma actually catches Lizzie burning her blue corduroy dress in the kitchen fire. And when investigated and interrogated about this, people were like, "Why did you do that?" And she was like, "Oh, well, it had old paint that just wasn't coming out." Yeah, just because that's what you do with all dresses, right? You just burn them in the fire. Yeah. So, of course, all evidence is pointing to Lizzie Borden. She was the only one in the house. She was the only one that could have possibly done it. And so on August 11th, they actually arrest her and she is sent to jail. The next day, she pleads not guilty to the unalivings of her father and stepmother. And she is actually sent to a jail in Taunton, which is farther up north than Fall River. Then August 22nd to the 23rd, there is a group of people that kind of just come together and they're talking about the case. And then a judge formally says, there's just so much evidence that is pointing to her. So, yeah, we're going to formally indict her and try her. And so begins the trial of Lizzie Borden. Now I'm going to speed up through the trial because trial. And so ultimately the trial finds Lizzie Borden not guilty. And the reason why they found her not guilty is because they couldn't believe that a woman of her status could possibly ever do something so brutal and so unladylike. And so they literally let her go, and that's that. And so she goes off scot-free. She moves out of her OG house, and of course she inherits all the money from her father. So her and her sister end up moving to the Hill, which earlier I said that's like where the socialites are, that's like the rich part of town. They find a manor to live in and they live the rest of their lives there. Emma eventually moves out, and Lizzie just lives her best life and just puts everything behind her, and she remains single for the rest of her life. And people even speculate that she was having a romantic affair with an actress. So, she's a queer. We love it. We love it. Now I want to talk about the paranormal instances that happen within the house. So like I said earlier, it is now a bed and breakfast. So many people travel from around the world to spend the night in the Lizzie Borden house. And people have said that they have felt the presence of Andrew Borden, and tour guides have said that they've actually felt him like punch them in their backs. And people have said that Lizzie Borden haunts the grounds, but again, she did not pass away there, so it may be unlikely that she is actually haunting the grounds. People say that they hear the sounds of children laughing, which could have been due to the fact that some children were actually unalived in 1848 in the house next door. And so that's where that haunting comes from. And lastly, there's the basement. So when my friends and I traveled to the Lizzie Borden house in Fall River, we went into the basement, and my friend's beanie was pulled. So her name is Alexis. And she says that, yeah, my beanie was pulled, and we had like a ghost app that was talking, and it had said the color of her beanie, and then that's when she felt the pull. And it was just wild. Like, talking to whatever entity was in that basement was just it was wild. And you could definitely feel an eeriness when you step into the house. It feels heavy. It feels, I don't know, it's just eerie and uncomfortable. But I definitely recommend visiting the Lizzie Borden house. It definitely is smaller than you would think. But again, it is a typical Victorian house. And so, yeah, that's all the paranormal stuff that I know. What paranormal stuff have you heard about the Lizzie Borden house? And make sure to let me know in the comments down below. So here is my theory about who committed these unalivings. And I feel that it was a family affair. I believe that Lizzie Borden and John Morse got together, and they were like, hey, we want to get rid of Abby Borden. We want to get rid of Father, and we want to inherit the riches. And I believe John may have taught Lizzie how to, do the things. And I don't think Emma was really up to it, so that's why they kind of sent her away during that time, and that's why she wasn't there when the unalivings occurred. But that is my theory, that it was a family affair. It was a plan that was set in motion prior to the unalivings. This wasn't something that was just on a whim. It was something planned. And I don't know. Many people believe the familial affair theory. Some people strictly believe that it was just Lizzie Borden. Some people believe it was Bridget. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. Who do you think is the axe murderer of Fall River? And that is episode 2 of the Final Queer Files. If you enjoyed this episode today, please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, because you do not want to miss a next Final Queer File. I may be talking about Jack the Ripper. I may be talking about the Black Dahlia. Who knows? Let me know in the comments down below. Who would you like me to cover next? All right, folks, that was the Final Queer Files, where the past isn't dead. It's just hiding in the dark.